Hey guys, this is part 2 of my Genie guide for archers. In this part we'll look at situational skills, and I'm going to be going through the skills in descending order from the most useful to the least useful in my opinion, in this big category of situational skills. So the first skill that we're going to start off with is Will Surge. This skill perhaps should have gone on the useful list, but it didn't, because it's only really used against 2 or 3 classes, but for those 2 or 3 classes it is very useful, so it could have gone on the useful must-have list, but I decided to put it on the situation list. This Genie skill is pretty much a must-have for any archer that's doing group PvP, because to take down psychics is basically the archer's job. I mean, archers are arguably the class that should be able to kill psychics the easiest. Highly refined psychics like rank 9 plus 12 psychics have like 40% so of silence chance or something like that, so that's 1 in every 2.5 shots. So when they have like 12k HP, 7k PDEF or something, and like 60-70 defense levels if they're like Jade of Steady Defense, even if you purge their voodoo and purge their buffs, so yes, they're still pretty hard to kill with just 2 shots. So you kind of need Will Surge in order to kill highly refined psychics, unless you want to waste an absolute domain or going to Iron Guard or Suture or Pengu Essence them, which is very expensive. So yeah, Will Surge is kind of a must-have to go up against psychics. Other classes that have seal skills, just off the top of my head, Blade Masters, but that's not easily predicted. Wizards have Force of Will. I use my on my Genie I have Will Surge on my mass PvP Genies, and if I see a wizard I can pretty much predict their Force of Will pretty easily. So Will Surge is also useful against wizards. Assassin's Throat Cut, that's a seal as well. That's harder to predict, but it's still doable. And Archer's Whisper Shot, that's pretty hard to see. Yeah, so Will Surge is like useful against 2 or 3 classes, and it's pretty much must have, although it's on the situation list. The next skill we're gonna have look at is Wind Force, the discipline starter skill. If you do a lot of open map PvP, which is hard to find nowadays, but it's still there, if you're on like Sanctuary or Raging Tides, I'm not sure about Locity and other servers, but usually there's a bit of like small group PvP around Westgate or somewhere, and Wind Force is like a holy path for the air, although it's not 15 meters per second. It increases your flight speed by 50% for 4.5 seconds, which means if you have like 3.2 meters per second wings, that goes on top of your base walking speed, which is 5 meters per second. So that's like 8.2 plus half of that, so 4.1. So you move at like 12 meters per second for 4.5 seconds, and if your Genie is like level 100, your usage is pretty low. I think if your Genie is like level 100, then it only uses 40 energy to use it. So yeah, it's a pretty useful skill for air kiting. Also, if you do like 1v1s versus barbs or BMs, I suggest that you take them and fight them in the air if possible, and yeah, you can use Wind Force then. It's one of the only skills, one of the, like, apart from Essential Suture, like the Psychic one and Wind Force, Distance Shrink, the BM leaps and Archer leaps, and Sin and BM Telestun, there's no other well, that does sound quite a long list, but yeah, there are only a few skills that could be used in the air. So wind force is situational, and it's kind of useful if you fight in the air a lot. Third skill is badge of courage. It's kind of like a mini faith in a way. It has a chance to remove a stun effect from yourself. The snag with this is that it's not 100% chance. At level 10 it's only a 40% chance, but the chance increases with dexterity points. So if you have like an 80 dexterity genie, like the one I have for fighting against assassins, then you have an 80% chance of removing the stun, which is pretty respectable, and it gets you out of a lot tight corner. I can't say it, but yeah, it helps you survive and gets you out of tight corners. Like Roar of the Pride is like a 6 or I can't remember, but the BM stuns are quite long. Assassin's Headhunt is 6 seconds or something. So yeah, if you can avoid getting like stunned by those classes, then it's pretty useful. It's only situational because it requires a high dexterity genie. If you don't have a high dexterity genie, and by high I mean preferably 70 dexterity upwards, although 80 or 90 is preferred, because then you got like an 80+ chance of succeeding. So, and being a defensive skill, you kind of want it to work when you use it. So yeah, it's a situational skill depending on the genie you have rather than the situation you're in. The fourth skill is one that I don't see commonly used. It's Evil Ward. I find like looking on my TW videos that the times that I usually get killed is when I'm under heavy gank, or when I'm having flamed by the Blade Master. So I got this skill like a while back, like when I was only part Jade of Steady Defense, so my defense rating wasn't through the roof yet, and by just like avoiding the Heaven Flames, I think I survived quite a bit. I mean, this skill is only really useful if you have high defense ratings already. So if you're like trying to put this politely, but if you're an average geared archer with something like 7 or 8k HP, little or no defense levels, by which I mean under 30, then this skill probably isn't for you, because a crit from a wizard can probably kill you regardless of Heaven Flame, Extreme Poison, or Vino Amp. Oh yeah, this skill resists all kinds of amps, so, and it's not only Heaven's Flame, but Heaven Flame is the most obvious one. I mean, in TW, BMs just rush in and roar and Heaven Flame, then get the fuck out. And yeah, so if you just click Evil Ward, like just a little after the stuns, you can see the beginning of Heaven Flame animation, then it'll immune it. But the side, obviously it also immunes against Vino and Extreme Poison, but those are a lot harder to predict, and the effect is not as much as Heaven Flame. So I mainly use Evil Ward against Heaven Flame, despite it being only useful if you're like if you're pretty highly geared. If you're pretty highly geared, it's pretty useful if you only die under ganks or like when you're Heaven Flamed or something like that. But yeah, it depends from person to person a lot. You should probably watch when you die and try and correct that, rather than just saying I'm plus 12J of steady defense, I got 15k HP, 75 defense levels, boogiepanda said I should use Evil Ward, therefore I'll get it. No, if you're dying to like assassins, then you should probably get Faith or Badge of Courage instead of Evil Ward. But if you die in ganks and heaven flames in TW, then you should definitely try out Evil Ward. If you use it and immune the heaven flame, it's a pretty amazing skill. So yeah,